أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Assalamu alaikum, my good friends. I just want to make a video sharing. I've got so many ideas and so many things that I've been working on and that I've written, and I've written a lengthy paper with about 24 pages. And I just can't get my head around producing a palatable YouTube video for you to take in or to share with you the information or the research that I've done. And I've been struggling for about 2 hours now to get to how do I condense it, how do I summarize it for you. And because it's very difficult, and because I think to myself, look, I'm just going to start speaking, I'm just going to highlight some of the ideas. I'm just going to make a video for you highlighting like here and there what the ideas are that I've been working on, and then you can download the whole paper and you can read it, and I can put it on. And if you check the section where it explains the details of the video, then you can maybe get a link there. I'll put it on after a while, after a few minutes or hours or after posting this video. But of course, the area that I was doing some work on was the area of Salah. And because I think it's a very, very, very critical, important aspect. And I see, it is something that is so entrenched in our lives, and it is something that is so all pervasive and ubiquitous in the Holy Qur'an, that you cannot not understand the concept. You cannot not want to know what this concept of Salah is all about. Now, I love my deen. I think I don't have to tell you that I've been reading, participating, involved in the deen since I was just a young man, and the reason I became involved in issues of religion and of the deen of Islam was because I simply abhorred, I detested the culture of impunity, the culture of immorality that I saw around me. Believe me, I have close family, I have close friends. They were older than me, somewhat older than me, and I used to feel disgusted by the things I saw in society. The way that women were treated, the way that sex was just a casual thing that people indulged in. And when I was about 16 or 17, I felt that I would like to make a difference, and I joined the local Muslim society, or what they call the Jama'ah, and I was involved with them for as much as I could until they kicked me out at one point. Because I also felt that the deen that I love, the religion that I love and that I want to dedicate myself to, has to make sense to all mankind. It should not be an ethnicity, should not be a community of 2,000 or 3,000 people in an ocean of other people, of non-Muslim people, where that beautiful deen, that beautiful message, the Qur'an, does not have any benefit for those other people. And I was kicked out of my community because I wanted to go to what we call here a township, African township, where the African black people are literally kept in camps of squalor and misery and extreme poverty and complete denial of any basic needs. I went to those camps, and I wanted to speak about the deen there, but I didn't go there with a silly idea of spreading the deen. I just thought my Quran makes me feel the necessity to go to that township and to assist in whatever way possible. And I became a volunteer teacher. I taught mathematics. I had a mathematics class there, and we just helped where we could. Myself, I had some of my brothers were involved, and we made up a small little group of activists, and we would be there. When we had some funds, we would distribute some welfare food, some humanitarian aid. I had another friend also, we used to teach mathematics and science, and we would help the kids to get through their high school. And we became friends with the teachers, and we tried to convince our Muslim priest and the community there that the way Islam works is that you have to actually make a difference, not in your life, but in the life of all humanity. And that is the message from the Qur'an. There's a verse that comes to mind, Alam tara kayfa, no, it is not that one. The one where Allah says, have you seen the one who denies judgment? كذبوا بالدين فذلك الذي يدعو اليتيم. And that verse in the Quran speaks about those who accept the day of judgment, those who accept accountability, are those who do not repel the innocent and defenseless person, who does not stop or prevent the feeding of the hungry. And these verses, it was always my understanding that these verses are the verses that I love. I want to act in accordance with them. But sadly, the priest and the sleepwalkers that followed the priest, to my dismay, would have nothing of it. And we were at countless meetings. I was, not myself, but we as a group, myself and those who were interested in taking Islam to the masses, were castigated. We were ostracized. We were told that we are bringing the dirty kuffar, and that is how people referred to the oppressed, the non-Muslim people, the masses who were suffering, who were oppressed. They call them the kuffar. They in a stupid way, they attached the label that the Qur'an attaches to those who are enemies, those who are at war with truth. The word kafir is those who are actively at war, who are actively combating the truth. They use that very term on the innocent, downtrodden and oppressed. I mean, there was another verse also, وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ. What is wrong with you? That you will not fight in the cause of God and of those who are oppressed, who are ill-treated. And those are the verses that the Qur'an came through to me and I and my brothers and some friends of ours. We felt that, listen, let's just go ahead. The Quran, that's what the Quran says. We're not misreading it. That's what the Quran is saying, is that we've got a mission here with the oppressed, not a mission to make them Muslim, not a mission to turn them into little mini Arabs or to make them speak funny, but a mission to emancipate the people, to make the people come out of this state of squalor, misery, oppression, and downtroddenness. And so that was the mission, and that is my love for the Quran, my love for the Deen, that ended up with me being kicked out of the mosque, kicked out of the so-called Jama'ah, and expelled, or whatever you can call it. And I had to move to the big city because that was a small town. And I had to, because we were not greeted in the streets, I would be looked at, because then they started attaching other labels. You see, then it's not enough for the enemy, for the munafiq, to accuse you of going and helping the so-called kuffar, the non-Muslim people. What they really want to do is they want to slander you. And so they started telling us, or telling the community, before 1979, they told the people that these people are communists. Then we were accused of being communists. And you know what? It's not such a big insult for me to be a communist. A communist, if a communist, I'm not a communist. I don't believe in Marxism. But there are aspects of it that I think I can buy into, the idea of an egalitarian society, etc. So I still hold on to many ideas of socialism, but they just use that label to exclude and to excommunicate people. Then in 1979, when we saw the Islamic revolution in Iran, when we saw the masses rising up and asking for the Qur'an and asking for Islam to be the law of the land, I was taken in. I was convinced. I saw the power of that, and I felt that finally there's a movement now that is giving vent to my understanding of the Deen, to my reading of the Qur'an. And then suddenly we became the Shia. You see, then these priests and the sleepwalkers that follow these priests blindly, they started a new attack line, and that is now no longer that you're communist, but now you are Shia. And don't greet them. They are kafir, they are burning in hell, and this and that and the other. And I, with my wife and my children, by that time I had some children. By that time I came back from Egypt also. I studied there, and I came back and I learned a bit about my deen, because I wanted to know, is this really Islam that I'm speaking, or is it Islam that they are presenting? When I came back from Egypt, I suddenly found myself not being greeted by the community. I walked in the streets, and I would put out my hand and people would not greet me, or they would ignore me in the streets. And suddenly my children became pariahs. I became a pariah. And I said to my wife, listen, it's time for us to pack up. And I just found myself being more and more involved in a bigger city, which is Cape Town. Because in a big city, people are generally more open-minded. They are generally more accommodating of differences. And in a small town, people are generally very afraid of change and of difference. And I don't blame all the people in a small town. You know, I just feel that they are secure in what they have. They don't want to question or doubt that which they have received. Oh yes, I might add also that my family hails from that town. My family is one of the traditional old folks of that town. My grandmother is a Hamildin, and her name is Aisha Hamildin, and she had a brother called Tahuddin, and he was the first Hafiz in that town. The first Hafiz of Qur'an, first person who memorized the Qur'an, was a grand uncle of mine, Tahuddin Hamildin. And so my family, my ancestors, the Hamildins, are indigenous people of that town. Of course, from my other's family, we were also very old, settled people of that town, but not as old as my Hamildin ancestors, who were descendants from Malaysian slaves. So very much, religious people who came from Malaysian slaves, and who were the leaders of the Islamic culture in that town. So maybe the love, for the deen, the love for these more spiritual inclined things, maybe go back. I don't know where it comes, but maybe if there's something like a blood gene for that, maybe it's from there. But you see, as time went on, I spent the past 30 years, because it's been 30 years since I left that town. And I didn't rest. Well, besides making a living and starting companies and building businesses and establishing myself financially, which I also had to do, there was nobody gave me handouts. I never got free money from anyone, not from the Saudis, not from Iran, not from any person. I always, whatever I have was what these two hands could produce, and the help that I could get from my mother, because my good dear father, who's departed, Allah yarhamhu, also left something for us to start and buy and put a deposit on a house and so on. So that is where we are. And so now I'm, for 30 years, reading, trying to understand, trying to question the Islam I was taught, the Islam that I got kicked out of. I have never ever become doubtful that the traditional Islam, the Islam that these people are perpetuating, has missed the real point of the deen. They have changed and transformed the whole point of the deen. Now, you might be wondering, why is this thing here behind you? I mean, it's it's Friday today, and I just read through some books here, and I came upon the famous Muwatta of Imam Malik, the first or the oldest madhab. And apologies for the neighbor who's doing lawn mowing today, and I hope it's not coming through across my voice, but you'll hear the faint lawn mowing sound in the back. So I looked at Muwatta, and I was trying to look at his take on Salah. And I came upon, because this is really a video where I wanted to speak about Salah. But I think I might have to postpone the topic of Salah, just leave it, make this an introduction, make this part one. So I was just looking at what does Muwatta have to say about Salah. And of course, what I find there was, Salatul Jumu'ah. Well, there is no such thing as Salatul Jumu'at in the Qur'an. The Qur'an speaks about Yawmul Jumu'at, of course. We know that. You've seen the video maybe of mine. That there is such a thing as Yawmul Jumu'ah, the day of coming together, the day of assembling. And we know that in ancient days there was one day of the week, the day before the Jewish Sabbath, which in the Arabian Peninsula, where there were many, many, many Jews, some towns had a majority of Jews, the day before the day of the Sabbath was the day of getting together, of going out, assembling in the marketplaces, going and buying food and stocking up, because the Sabbath day you can't buy, you can't sell, you can't produce anything, you have to be in a spiritual state. So we know that the Yawm al-Jumu'at is connected to the day of Saturday. It is the day of busyness, the day of outside, of being in the market. Yawm al-Jumu'ah. It's not Salatul Jumu'ah, but nonetheless, I come upon this hadith, and I just thought, let me just share this hadith with you before I get into the topic. And have a look at this hadith, man. This hadith says, again, the old story, Abu Hurayra, the famous Abu Hurayra says that he claims that this was what the Prophet had to say about Yawmil Jumu'at. And these sleepwalkers, the sheeple, they hang on to these hadiths. I'm telling you, people on Fridays, they believe all this nonsense. And this is what this liar says. And you can call me kafir. Yes, I'm a kafir of Abu Hurayra, because I am a mu'min of the Qur'an. And so I'm a kufr of Abu Hurayra. Accuse me of that. Kick me out of your religion. If your religion is Abu Hurayra, please feel free to kick me out of your religion. And I warn you also that I hope you feel comfortable with your Abu Hurayra one day when you face Allah, because this is a liar. And listen to this hadith here, that he claims in a lie that the messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, and this is the Muwatta of Imam Malik. If someone does ghusl for a major ritual impurity on the day of Jumu'ah, and then goes in the first part of the time. Now, what that means, only Allah knows. What is the first part of the time of Jumu'ah? But if you do go in the first part of the time, it is as if he had offered up a camel. So this hadith says that if you go to Jumu'ah, I guess very early, then you get the reward as if you have made a sacrifice of a camel. I mean, that's very easy. Every week you can get that reward. That's almost like you don't have to feed anyone. You don't have to give any zakah. All you have to do is go 15 minutes early to Jumu'ah, and then your need for being a social activist, for feeding the poor and the needy is uplifted. You don't have to feed anyone. It's like you've already given zakah or sadaqah. Now you can add it up. If you go 52 times a year early, right? If you go early 52 times a year, then you've given 52 camels, or say 50 times. You've given 50 camels. Now a camel, I know in today's value, is roughly about 20,000 worth. So you've given R1,000,000 in zakah if you go early to the Jumu'ah. That is the implication. If you take this seriously, I don't know if you take it seriously. If someone does ghusl and then goes in the first, then it's like a camel. If it goes in the second part, if he goes in the second part, there's the second part. It is as if you offered up a cow. Wow, so now you've given a cow zakah, which is about 20,000, which is, in a million rand in dollars. I've just mentioned $1,000,000 is about $20,000, I think, or $50,000, $50,000. If he goes in the third part of the time, it is as if he had offered up a horned ram. Now it's a sheep, right? If he does in the fourth part of the time, so I don't know what the heck is the fourth part of the time. What does it mean to go to Jumat in the fourth part of the time? Is it like going just before the Salah? It doesn't explain. And this is the nonsense that they actually dump on you as a blind follower. It's like, if you go in the fourth part, it is as if he had offered up a hen. So it's a chicken. But here comes the joke, and I think this guy should be a stand-up comic. If he goes in the fifth part of the time, whatever that means, it is as if he had offered up an egg. It is as if though he had offered up an egg. So if you go in, now whatever that means, if you go in the fifth part of the Jumat, maybe like 5 minutes before the time ends, your sadaqah is only you've given an egg. You've only given an egg sadaqah. But people, if you think this is Islam, then you must wake up, because this is just nonsense now. This is pure nonsense. This is stuff that one guy made up. If you believe this guy is your teacher, then you, if you believe he spoke the truth, then he is the biggest alim in Islam. 5,000 hadiths. Nobody else comes near. And he is virtually or literally your messenger. He's your messenger. He's bringing the message from the messenger. You are then making a Rasul of this guy. And I am immune to that nonsense. I accept him. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah wa anna Abu Hurayra Kazzab. That is my kalima. That is my kalima. And if you want to argue with me, show me proof. Show me proof in the comments. I will continue with the topic of Salah. So let me just end there to make this video a little bit not too long.